Right, folks, here is your weekly roundup. It's been another busy week in sport, so we will get right to it. This weekend might have been Valentine's Day, but it was also the second round of the Six Nations, so that is where we will start. There were some expected results, some unexpected results, and another influential red card. England and Italy opened up the weekend's action at Twickenham. England did win, as you'd expect. Italy got a few tries, though, played very well, and actually their youngsters are looking pretty damn exciting. So they are going to be a team to watch over the next few years. The match was marred, though, by a huge injury for Willis. He's only just come back from an ACL, an ankle injury. He's only 24 and he's facing another lengthy spell on the sidelines. Good to hear he hasn't ruptured his ACL again as far as the latest reports go. But it remains to be seen how long he'll be out, so we wish him all the best. Wales were in Murrayfield against a resurgent Scotland side, with Ireland having already lost, with England having already lost. Pretty much the title looked to be between France and Scotland, which is pretty unbelievable when you think where Scotland have been for the last few years. Scotland probably on paper deserved to win it, but there was another influential red card. Xander Ferguson was sent off. Another infringement of the breakdown. Now, this one divided the pundits. Some thought it was harsh, certainly more harsh than the one the week before for Ireland. That being said, if rugby is genuinely serious about sorting out its concussion issues, if it's genuinely serious about being a sport in 20, 30 years' time, if it's genuinely serious about protecting the next group of players coming through, it's got to be zero tolerance to anything, any action around the head area. Whether that means they need to change the rules around the breakdown, change the way teams defend around the breakdown, change the way they are and aren't allowed to clear out, because that seems to be the most vulnerable areas. That's also, interestingly, where Willis's injury occurred, even though it wasn't a head injury. So I'd say the governing bodies need to look at the breakdown area again and make sure the rules are fit for purpose. Because at the moment, it seems if you're going to clear out a ruck, you're going to get pinged, and it's very, very hard to avoid the head. So basically, that meant Scotland were down to 14 men. They played heroically, as Ireland had the week before, but couldn't quite scrape past a Wales team that started to look exciting for the first time in a while. So that is good news. So that was a 1-point defeat for Scotland, ruins their Grand Slam chances, and means Wales are 2 from 2. On Sunday, Ireland played France in Dublin. Obviously, we've still got no crowds, which negates home advantage. France were not their usual fluid self. They didn't play as well as they have done in the last few matches. Nonetheless, they had enough to squeak past an Ireland team, even though they were down to 14 men for some of it when one of their players was sin-binned. So France is still on for the Grand Slam. Scotland are actually playing France in Paris, but again, we probably won't have fans by then. So that again negates a little bit of that advantage. So that's going to be a very, very good match to watch, but my money is still on France to do the Grand Slam. Rest weekend coming up, so no rugby, no international rugby this weekend. So we get a little bit of a breather before the next matches. Elsewhere, we have had the second test against India, the cricket from Chennai. Now, very different to the first test, and there's been some controversy here as well about the pitch. What India have prepared or told the groundsman to prepare is a very spinning pitch, which you'd expect, a very dry, dusty pitch, which you'd expect, but the top layer has just disintegrated from day one. So a lot of ex-players and pundits were calling it a day 5 pitch on day 1. Take nothing away from India. They have outbatted, outbowled and outplayed England in this test. They did win the toss, which was an advantage, but they have played better. They made over 300 in their first innings, which was a huge score on this pitch. England were bowled out for 130 odd. They only missed the follow-on by a handful of runs. Had India been able to enforce the follow-on, we're probably looking at an innings defeat in under 3 days, which is not what you want from an international test match. As it is, India batted again. They batted very well second time round. Ashwin made a century. He's bowled superbly. and they had England 3 down at the close of day 3. That means England have 7 wickets in hand and 2 days to survive, and they're chasing a score up around the 500 mark. Safe to say it's pretty much a foregone conclusion with the best will in the world. Root is at the crease. He is very lucky to be there. He was plumb LBW. Seems Hawkeye, which is normally pretty good in the cricket or ball tracking technology, had a little bit of a howler for a decision late on, which Kohli was not happy about. Kohli once again pushing the boundaries. He ran on the pitch. He demonstrated with the umpires on numerous occasions, so he's probably going to get a bit of a match fee fine, but also bringing the game in disrepute slightly, which is just unnecessary because India are hands down going to win this second test. Overall, obviously, 1-1 going into the third test, which is a day-nighter, is an exciting place to be, on top of which there are ramifications of this result on who makes the World Test Championship final this summer to face New Zealand. Could be England, could be India, could be Australia, depending on the result in India. So that's all very exciting and worth keeping an eye on. Again, they are having a rest weekend next weekend, having just played back-to-back tests. Besto's back out there. He's currently quarantining, having missed the first test to have a break from the bubble. Butler's gone home after the first test. That means Folkes is keeping, and he has been the biggest kind of positive news story from this second test for England. His keeping has been superb. He top scored in the first innings, and he's just looking a great player again. Very unlucky not to have had a longer run in the England team. So, great problem to have. 3 good batsman wicket keepers. Yeah, over to you, Silverwood. You can decide moving forward who you want to keep wicket for England. A word on Dan Lawrence. He's kept his place as well. Crawley hasn't recovered from the wrist sprain he sustained before the first match slipping over. He's at the crease with Root as we head into day 4 tonight. Looks by far the most fluid he has since that first match in Sri Lanka, the last time he made some runs. So hopefully a big score for him, a big score for Root, and maybe we'll at least make it competitive and maybe drag it into a 5th day. Melbourne Tennis still going on, believe it or not. It feels like they've been down there for centuries. We're into the quarter-final stage. We've got Ash Barty for the home fans who have now been sent home because Melbourne is in a 5-day emergency lockdown. So the tennis is back behind closed doors, but Ash Barty's doing it for the home fans, having basically barely played for a year. She's still world number 1, she's into the quarters, and she's in the top half of the draw, which looks the better half. The bottom half of the draw has Osaka, Serena, Halep and Heish in it. So much heavier loaded with experience and rankings. So no idea who's going to make the final there. You tip Barty from the top half of the draw. I mean, Osaka looks brilliant, but she doesn't particularly like playing Heish. Halep was taken to 3 sets yesterday, but again, she's a quality player. Serena, you never quite know what you're going to get. Over in the men's, they're also in the quarter-final stage, heavily packed with Europeans. The top and the bottom, again, have some stellar names. Djokovic has made it to the quarters despite complaining about an abdominal issue, which doesn't seem to be affecting him massively. He plays Zverev in the big sort of marquee match in the top half. Bottom half's got Nadal versus Tsitsipas, who got a walkover, so whether that will help him or not remains to be seen. So quite who we get in the final is anyone's game. Team, though, is out, the US Open champion. He lost. He was taken to 5 sets and then ended up losing in the next round in straight sets. I had rather hoped to not be talking to you about F1 this week. With the news of Hamilton's contract last week, I thought that would be F1 done and dusted. There were car launches coming up, but we're still the best part of a month out from pre-season testing in Bahrain. 2 big news stories from the world of F1, though. First of which, Fernando Alonso, obviously returning to Renault, who have rebranded as Alpine this year, suffered a bike crash. He was out biking in Switzerland and he had a collision with a car outside a Lidl, as far as we know. We wish him all the best. early reports, a fractured jaw, possibly knocks some teeth out, should be fit for the start of the season, according to the team. But you can imagine Nico Hulkenberg was probably rubbing his hands in glee when he heard that news. The other big news from the world of F1, which actually broke this morning, you might remember last year Honda pulled out as being an engine manufacturer. They currently supply Red Bull and Red Bull's sister/junior team AlphaTauri. There's been an agreement now for Red Bull to buy Honda's technology. They're setting up a separate company based in Milton Keynes, but they'll effectively be running Honda engines until 2024. So that digs them out of a bit of a hole and means they don't have the awkwardness of going begging back to Renault for some engines, because there's probably no way Mercedes would ever supply them. So that's your weekly roundup. We've obviously got the cricket probably finishing tomorrow, which is day 4, possibly finishing Wednesday. And then we've got the tennis finals coming up this weekend, so we will be back next week with probably some injury roundups from the Six Nations ahead of the third round of that. Obviously some news of who's done what down under, and then there's been some skiing and some athletics. So plenty to bring you next week. I'll catch you then, guys.